The observation deck of the Galactic Council station hummed with quiet activity. Ambassador Thelnox stood before the massive viewing window, his 4 eyes scanning the darkness of space. Behind him, technicians from a dozen different species worked at their stations monitoring the primitive FTL signature that had appeared at the edge of Council space. "How long until they arrive?" Thelnox asked, his translator device converting his clicking speech into the common language. "Approximately 2 standard hours." "Ambassador," replied a young Cathari operator, her scale shimmering under the station's lights. "The signature matches our predictions. Crude warp technology, barely faster than light. They must have just discovered the basic principles." Thelnox nodded, satisfied. This was how it always went. A new species developed faster than light travel, sent out their first exploration vessel, and the Council was there to greet them, to guide them, to control them. In his long career, Thelnox had welcomed 43 new species into the galactic community. Each time followed the same pattern. The newcomers arrived in a small ship, perhaps 20 crew members at most. They were excited, nervous, hopeful. They dreamed of joining the great community of stars, of trading technology and culture with advanced civilizations. Then came the disappointment. The Council's rules were strict. New species faced 500 years of probation, limited territory, restricted technology, heavy taxation on all trade. It was for their own good, of course. Primitive species needed to be protected from themselves and from the dangerous galaxy around them. "Prepare the welcome package," Thelnox ordered. "Standard protocol. Make sure the restrictions are clearly stated. These humans need to understand their place from the beginning." "Yes, Ambassador," the operator replied. Thelnox pulled up the information file on humanity. They were from a planet called Earth, a small blue world in an unremarkable system. The species had only recently unified under a single government after centuries of warfare. Their technology was primitive by Council standards. They had developed basic fusion power and crude FTL drives. Nothing impressive. The file noted that humans were unusually aggressive for a spacefaring species. Their history was filled with wars, genocides, and conflicts. Thelnox frowned at this information. Such species needed especially firm guidance. The galaxy had no place for warlike primitives. "Ambassador, we have the greeting fleet in position," another technician reported. 5 ceremonial vessels all equipped with standard defensive shields. "They're ready to escort the human shuttle to the station." "Excellent," Thelnox said. "Remember, everyone, this is a momentous occasion for them. Their first contact with advanced civilization. We must be welcoming but firm. They need to understand that the Council maintains order in this galaxy." The technicians murmured their agreement. This was routine for them. Another primitive species, another standard greeting. By tomorrow, the humans would be signing the probationary agreements, accepting their limitations and beginning their long journey toward full membership in the Council. Thelnox walked back to the viewing window. The ceremonial fleet hung in space, their hulls polished to perfection. Each ship bore the symbol of the Galactic Council, a circle of stars representing unity and peace. The fleet was more for show than function. After all, what could a primitive shuttle possibly do against even a single Council vessel? "Ambassador, something is wrong," the Cathari operator suddenly said, her voice tight with concern. "What is it?" Thelnox turned from the window. "The signature. It's growing. The energy readings are increasing exponentially. This doesn't match any profile for a first contact vessel." Thelnox felt a chill run through his body. "Check your instruments." "There must be an error." "No error, Ambassador. The readings are confirmed. Whatever is coming out of FTL, it's massive, far larger than any exploration shuttle should be." Other technicians began reporting similar findings. The room's calm atmosphere evaporated, replaced by confused murmurs and worried chittering. Thelnox stared at the displays, refusing to believe what they showed. Perhaps the humans had sent multiple shuttles. A small fleet of exploration vessels? "They're dropping out of FTL," someone announced. "Visual contact in 5 seconds." The main viewing screen activated, showing the area of space where the human vessel would appear. Thelnox watched, his heart's beating faster. Perhaps the readings were wrong. Perhaps this was all a technical malfunction. Then they arrived. The first thing that emerged from the swirling distortion of FTL was not a shuttle. It was a monster. A massive construct of metal and weapons that seemed to tear itself out of faster-than-light space, Like a predator emerging from shadows, the main hull stretched for kilometers, bristling with gun emplacements and missile batteries. Massive engines glowed at the rear, powerful enough to push the enormous mass through space at speeds that should have been impossible for something so large. By the ancestors, Thelnox whispered. The ship continued to emerge, revealing more and more of its bulk. Armor plating covered every surface, thick enough to withstand impacts that would vaporize lesser vessels. Strange symbols marked the hull, along with designations in human script. As the translation software processed the information, words appeared on the screens around the observation deck. UESS Prometheus. United Earth Space Service, Ambassador, more contacts, the Kthari operator said, her voice shaking. 20 additional vessels just dropped out of FTL. The viewing screen split into multiple images. Each one showed another human warship, smaller than the massive flagship but still far larger than the Council's ceremonial vessels. They moved with precision, taking up formation around their flagship. These were not exploration ships. These were weapons of war, designed and built for one purpose, destruction. Thelnox stared at the fleet in disbelief. This was impossible. New species always arrived in small exploration vessels. They came seeking friendship and trade. They came with hope and curiosity. They did not arrive with enough firepower to destroy a solar system. Get me a communication channel, Thelnox ordered, trying to keep his voice steady. Now, the technician scrambled to comply. This had never happened before. There was no protocol for this situation. The Council's carefully maintained system of first contact, perfected over thousands of years, had just been torn apart by these humans and their massive warships. Channel open. Ambassador, someone reported. Thelnox cleared his throat. Attention, unknown vessels. This is Ambassador Thelnox of the Galactic Council. You have entered Council space. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions. For a long moment, there was only silence. The human fleet hung in space, weapons powered but not armed, waiting. Then the communication channel crackled to life. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth Space Service vessel Prometheus. We are transmitting our credentials and diplomatic clearances now. The voice was female, confident, and completely calm. It was not the voice of someone overwhelmed by their first contact with alien civilization. It was the voice of a military commander who knew exactly what she was doing. Data began streaming into the Council station's computers. Thelnox watched as the information scrolled across his screen. Official documents from Earth's government, military credentials, diplomatic papers. Everything was in order, perfectly formatted according to Council first contact protocols. But that was impossible. How could they know the protocols? How could they have prepared these documents according to Council specifications? We have been monitoring your communication networks for the past 6 months, Captain Chen continued as if reading his thoughts. We have learned your languages, studied your laws, and observed your activities. We know how first contact is supposed to proceed. Thelnox felt his confidence crumbling. 6 months? The humans had been watching them for 6 months before making contact? That level of caution and preparation was unheard of among new species. Captain Chen, Thelnox said carefully, the standard protocol for first contact involves a small exploration vessel, not a military fleet. Can you explain why you have brought warships to this meeting? Another pause. Then Captain Chen replied, her voice now carrying an edge of cold steel. Ambassador, before we arrived, we spent those 6 months doing more than just learning your languages. We studied your history. We analyzed your actions. We investigated your so-called peacekeeping operations. Thelnox felt a knot forming in his stomach. I don't understand what you mean. We detected 17 active conflicts in the sectors near Earth, Captain Chen said. We found evidence of 3 attempted invasions of primitive worlds that the Council failed to prevent. We discovered records of 2 ongoing genocides that the Council has ignored. We learned about the slave markets operating in Sector 447 that the Council claims not to know about. The observation deck had gone completely silent. Every technician was staring at the screens, listening to the human captain's words. Thelnox wanted to deny the accusations, but his mouth had gone dry. We also learned about the 500-year probationary period, Captain Chen continued. About the technology restrictions that keep new species dependent on Council members. About the trade taxes that ensure primitive species can never achieve true independence. We learned about the system you have built, Ambassador. A system that maintains your power while pretending to maintain peace. Those are lies, Thelnox managed to say, though his voice lacked conviction. The Council exists to protect all species. Our rules ensure stability and prevent conflict. Your rules ensure compliance, Captain Chen shot back. You don't protect the weak, Ambassador. You control them. And we are not going to participate in that system. Thelnox straightened, finding his anger. You have no choice. Every species that enters Council space must follow Council law. If you refuse, you will be quarantined to your home system. Your trade will be restricted. Your expansion will be limited. You will be isolated from galactic civilization. Is that a threat, Ambassador? It is a statement of fact. Another long silence. Thelnox waited, expecting the humans to back down. Every species did, eventually. The threat of isolation was too great. No one wanted to be cut off from the galaxy, left alone in the darkness of space. Ambassador Thelnox, Captain Chen said finally. Let me make something clear. Humanity spent 200,000 years on one small planet, fighting and surviving and learning. We endured ice ages with nothing but sharp sticks and fire. We survived 5 mass extinctions. We split the atom and turned nuclear fire into a power source. We reached our moon with computers less powerful than the devices your children play with. And we did all of this while killing each other in wars that consumed entire continents. She paused, letting her words sink in. We are very good at surviving, Ambassador. And we are even better at fighting. We did not come here to beg for permission to join your civilization. We came here to inform you that Earth is now a galactic power, whether you like it or not. Thelnox stared at the massive warship on his screen, at the fleet surrounding it, at the weapons that could reduce his station to atoms. He had welcomed 43 species to the galaxy. Not one of them had ever spoken to him like this. What do you want? He asked quietly. We want answers, Captain Chen replied. We want to know why the Galactic Council, with all its power and technology, allows atrocities to occur in its territory. We want to know why you claim to maintain peace while ignoring the suffering of billions, and most importantly, we want to know what you're going to do about it. The Council does not answer to primitive species, Thelnox said, trying to regain some authority. Then the Council is going to have a problem, Captain Chen said. Because we are not going away, and we are not going to ignore what we have seen. The slave markets in Sector 447 are going to be shut down. The invasions are going to be stopped. The genocides are going to end. Either the Council is going to help us or the Council is going to stay out of our way. You cannot threaten the Council, Thelnox said. We have the combined military might of 847 species. You are one world with a handful of ships. A handful of ships built specifically to fight wars that would make your conflicts look like playground disputes, Captain Chen corrected. Ambassador, I am not here to threaten you. I am here to give you an opportunity. Work with us to fix what is broken in this galaxy. Help us protect those who cannot protect themselves. Or stand aside and watch as we do it ourselves. The communication channel went silent. Thelnox stood in the observation deck, surrounded by stunned technicians, staring at the human fleet that had just upended everything he knew about First Contact. These were not the grateful primitives he had expected. These were not naive explorers hoping for scraps of advanced technology. These were humans, and they had not come to ask permission. They had come to demand justice, and they had brought the weapons to enforce it. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UESS Prometheus, watching the Council station through the main view screen. Around her, the bridge crew worked at their stations with calm efficiency. No one spoke unless necessary. No one showed fear or uncertainty. They had trained for this moment for 3 years, ever since Earth's deep space probes had first detected signs of alien civilization. Status report, Sarah said quietly. All weapon systems are online but not armed, replied Commander James Morrison, her tactical officer. Defensive shields at maximum. All escort vessels report ready status. We can engage in 30 seconds if needed. Sarah nodded. 30 seconds. That was all the time they would need if this went wrong. The Prometheus had been designed with one purpose in mind: to ensure that humanity's first contact with alien species happened on Earth's terms, not theirs. Every weapon system, every piece of armor, every tactical program had been built and tested with the understanding that humanity might be entering a hostile galaxy. And from what they had observed over the past 6 months, that fear had been justified. Communication from the Council station, reported Lieutenant Park from the communications station. Ambassador Thelnox is requesting a face-to-face meeting. He wants to discuss terms. Sarah smiled slightly. Terms. The ambassador still thought this was a negotiation where he held the power. He still believed that the council could dictate conditions to humanity. That misconception needed to be corrected quickly. Tell the ambassador that I will meet with him in 2 hours, Sarah replied. The meeting will take place aboard the Prometheus. He may bring 2 advisors. No more. Captain, is that wise? Asked Commander Morrison. Bringing council representatives aboard our flagship? They need to see what they're dealing with, Sarah said. They need to understand that we are not some primitive species they can intimidate with shows of force. Send the message, Lieutenant. Yes, Captain. Sarah turned back to the view screen. The council's ceremonial fleet still hung in space, maintaining their distance. 5 ships, each one designed more for appearance than combat. Beautiful vessels with elegant curves and shining hulls. They looked like works of art compared to the brutal, functional design of human warships. But Sarah knew which ships would survive a real fight. Captain, we are receiving multiple communication requests, Lieutenant Park said. News agencies from across council space are asking for statements. They want to know who we are and why we brought a military fleet to first contact. Ignore them for now, Sarah ordered. We will make our statement when we are ready. First, we need to deal with the ambassador. The bridge fell silent again, each crew member focused on their duties. Sarah had chosen her crew carefully. Every person aboard the Prometheus had been selected not just for their skills, but for their understanding of the mission. They all knew what was at stake. Humanity's place in the galaxy would be determined by what happened in the next few days. Sarah walked to her command chair and sat down, pulling up data files on her personal screen. For 6 months, Earth's intelligence services had been gathering information about the Galactic Council. They had intercepted communications, decoded databases, and analyzed thousands of hours of broadcasts. What they discovered had shocked the leadership back on Earth. The Council was not the benevolent organization it claimed to be. Behind the speeches about peace and cooperation lay a system designed to keep new species weak and dependent. The probationary periods, the technology restrictions, the trade limitations. All of it served to maintain the power of the old established species while keeping newcomers in positions of perpetual inferiority. But that was not the worst of it. The intelligence reports had also revealed the conflicts the Council ignored, the atrocities they overlooked, and the suffering they allowed to continue. All in the name of maintaining stability and avoiding direct intervention. Earth's leaders had faced a choice. They could play along with the Council system, accepting their place as a junior member and hoping to eventually gain influence. Or they could arrive with enough power to demand respect and change. They had chosen the second option. 2 hours until the ambassador arrives, Commander Morrison said. Should we prepare a formal reception? No, Sarah replied. This is not a social visit. Set up a meeting room near the main hangar. Basic furnishings only. I want the ambassador to walk through our ship and see exactly what humanity has built. Morrison smiled grimly. Understood, Captain. The next 2 hours passed in careful preparation. The Prometheus was a warship, built for combat, but it also served as humanity's flagship for first contact. Every detail had been considered. The halls were clean and well-maintained. The crew moved with discipline and purpose, and everywhere, the evidence of human military power was on display. Railgun batteries capable of accelerating projectiles to a significant fraction of light speed, missile tubes loaded with fusion warheads, energy weapons that could cut through armor like paper, point defense systems designed to intercept thousands of incoming threats, and the ship's main weapon, a spinal-mounted mass driver that could punch through a moon. Sarah wanted the ambassador to see all of it. She wanted him to understand that humanity had not stumbled into space with primitive technology and naive hopes. They had come prepared for war. The ambassador's shuttle is approaching, Lieutenant Park announced. They are requesting permission to dock. Grant it, Sarah said, standing from her command chair. Commander Morrison, you have the bridge. I will meet our guests at the hangar. Good hunting, Captain, Morrison replied. Sarah left the bridge and made her way through the ship's corridors. Crew members saluted as she passed, their faces showing confidence and determination. She returned their salutes, proud of the men and women who had volunteered for this mission. They were the best humanity had to offer, and they were ready for whatever came next. The main hangar was a massive space capable of holding dozens of shuttles and fighters. Currently it held only a few craft, leaving plenty of room for the ambassador's shuttle to land. Sarah arrived just as the alien vessel was settling onto the deck, its engines humming as they powered down. The shuttle was beautiful in its own way, all smooth curves and elegant design. It looked like something that belonged in a museum rather than in active service. The door hissed open and a ramp extended to the deck. Ambassador Thelnox emerged first, his tall figure moving carefully down the ramp. He wore elaborate robes decorated with symbols of his rank, and his 4 eyes scanned the hangar with obvious interest. Behind him came 2 advisors, both from different species Sarah did not recognize. Sarah stepped forward, her uniform plain and functional compared to the ambassador's elaborate clothing. Ambassador Thelnox, welcome aboard the Prometheus. The ambassador's translator device activated, converting his clicking speech into English. Captain Chen, thank you for agreeing to meet with me. Though I must say the circumstances are highly irregular. These are irregular times, Sarah replied. Please follow me. We have much to discuss. She led them through the ship, deliberately choosing a route that would take them past weapon stations and through armory sections. The ambassador and his advisors tried to maintain diplomatic composure, but Sarah could see their eyes widening as they took in the sheer scale of humanity's war-making capability. They passed a squad of Marines conducting training exercises, their powered armor making them look like mechanical giants. They walked by engineering sections where technicians maintained the massive fusion reactors that powered the ship. They saw crew members at every station, focused and professional, ready for combat at a moment's notice. Finally, they reached the meeting room Sarah had prepared. It was a plain space with a simple table and chairs, nothing like the elegant diplomatic chambers the ambassador was probably used to. Sarah gestured for them to sit. I must confess, Captain Chen, the ambassador said as he settled into his chair. This is not how I expected this meeting to proceed. Typically, first contact is a cause for celebration. There are ceremonies, exchanges of gifts, discussions of culture and art. Typically, the species making first contact is not aware that they are entering a galaxy where atrocities are allowed to continue unchecked. Sarah replied bluntly, Ambassador, let me be direct. Humanity has spent 6 months observing the Galactic Council. We have seen your laws, your customs, and your actions, and we are not impressed. One of the advisors, a reptilian being with green scales, hissed in anger. You dare insult the Council? We have maintained peace for 10,000 years. You have maintained the illusion of peace, Sarah corrected, while allowing actual suffering to continue as long as it does not threaten Council interests. The slave markets in Sector 447, the invasion of the Kelmar homeworld, the genocide of the Thrin people, all of these are documented facts that the Council has chosen to ignore. Ambassador Thelnox raised one hand, silencing his advisor. Captain, you must understand. The galaxy is vast and complex. The Council cannot intervene in every conflict. We must maintain a delicate balance, avoiding actions that might spark larger wars. That is a convenient excuse for inaction, Sarah said, and humanity rejects it. We did not claw our way out of our gravity well and cross light years of space just to watch injustice continue, while those with the power to stop it claim their hands are tied. What would you have us do? The ambassador asked. You speak of intervention, but you have no understanding of the consequences. The Council's member species have their own interests, their own conflicts. If we begin taking sides, we risk tearing apart the very peace we have built. Sarah leaned forward. Then your peace is built on sand, Ambassador. If the only way to maintain it is to allow atrocities, then it is not true peace. It is merely the absence of war among the powerful, bought at the expense of the weak. The room fell silent. The ambassador and his advisors exchanged glances, clearly not accustomed to being spoken to so directly. Sarah waited, letting her words sink in. Even if what you say has merit, the ambassador finally said, what can one species do? You have a handful of ships, Captain Chen. The Council has thousands. You have one world. The Council has hundreds. Your power is insignificant compared to ours. Sarah smiled. It was not a friendly smile. Is it? Tell me, Ambassador, how many of your species serve in the Council's military forces? The ambassador blinked. I do not see the relevance of that question. Humor me. Very few, the ambassador admitted. The Vraxian Consortium is primarily a commercial and diplomatic power. We contribute funding and logistical support to Council forces. And the other Council species? Sarah pressed. How many of them maintain significant military forces? How many of them are actually prepared for war? The ambassador's silence was answer enough. Sarah nodded. That is what we discovered in our observations, Ambassador. The Council's military power is an illusion. Most of your member species have allowed their defense forces to atrophy, relying on the assumption that no one would dare challenge Council authority. Your thousands of ships are mostly ceremonial vessels and lightly armed patrol craft. You have a few species that maintain real military power. But even they have grown complacent after 10,000 years of unchallenged dominance. You are making dangerous assumptions, the second advisor warned. A being with multiple limbs and crystal-like skin. Am I? Sarah pulled up a holographic display, showing detailed breakdowns of Council military capabilities. We have analyzed your fleet compositions, your weapons technology, and your tactical doctrines. We have studied your last military engagement, which occurred 700 years ago against a species that barely had spaceflight. Your forces are unprepared for modern warfare. She changed the display, showing images of human warships and weapon systems. Humanity, on the other hand, has never stopped fighting. Even after we unified our world government, we continued to develop military technology. Because we knew that when we finally reached the stars, we might encounter hostility. We prepared for the worst while hoping for the best. The ambassador stared at the display, his four eyes wide. You built all of this before making first contact? Your entire civilization dedicated itself to preparing for war? We dedicated ourselves to ensuring our survival, Sarah corrected, and to ensuring that if we encountered a galaxy that needed changing, we would have the power to change it. She stood, walking around the table to stand beside the ambassador. I am going to be very clear, Ambassador Thelnox. Humanity is not asking for permission to join the galactic community. We are informing you that we are now a galactic power. The slave markets will be shut down. The invasions will be stopped. The genocides will end. This will happen with Council cooperation or without it. The choice is yours. And if we refuse? The ambassador asked quietly. If we use the full might of the Council to stop you? Sarah met his gaze steadily. Then the galaxy will learn that the Council's 10,000 years of peace were maintained not through strength, but through the absence of anyone willing to challenge them. Because we are willing, Ambassador. We are ready, and we will not back down. The ambassador sat in silence for a long moment. Finally he stood, his robes rustling. I must consult with the Council leadership. This is far beyond my authority to decide. Of course, Sarah said. But while you consult, know this. We are done waiting. In 72 hours, human forces will move into Sector 4047 to begin shutting down the slave markets. Any attempt to stop us will be considered an act of war. Choose your next actions carefully, Ambassador. The ambassador and his advisors left without another word, escorted back to their shuttle by a squad of Marines. Sarah watched them go, knowing that everything had just changed. Humanity had thrown down the gauntlet. Now they would see if the Council had the courage to pick it up. She made her way back to the bridge, where Commander Morrison was waiting with a questioning look. How did it go, Captain? He asked. Sarah settled into her command chair, looking out at the stars. They are going to fight us. They cannot afford to back down. Their entire system of control depends on new species accepting their place. Then we are going to war? We are going to do what is right, Sarah replied. And if that means war, then so be it. Alert all vessels. Combat operations begin in 72 hours. Humanity has arrived, Commander. And we are not here to play by their rules. The Council chamber was ancient, built thousands of years ago when the galactic government was first established. Massive pillars of crystalline material supported a dome that showed the stars above, a reminder that the Council's authority extended across the galaxy. Representatives from 847 species filled the seats, their voices creating a cacophony of different languages and sounds as they debated what to do about the human problem. Ambassador Thelnox stood at the central podium, feeling the weight of thousands of eyes upon him. In his long career, he had never been in a situation like this. No species had ever challenged the Council so directly, with such confidence and military power. The humans had not just rejected Council authority. They had threatened to tear apart the entire system that had maintained order for 10 millennia. Order, called High Chancellor Varix the leader of the Council. His voice boomed through the chamber, silencing the debates. Varix was a zenith, one of the oldest species in the council, and his authority was absolute. Ambassador Thelnox will present his report. Everyone will listen in silence. The chamber quieted immediately. Thelnox took a deep breath and began. Honored council members, I have returned from my meeting with the human military commander, Captain Sarah Chen. What I witnessed there was deeply concerning. The humans have arrived with a fleet of advanced warships, and they have made demands that strike at the very foundation of council authority. He activated a holographic display, showing images of the human vessels. Gasps and murmurs filled the chamber as the council members saw the massive warships for the first time. The Prometheus dominated the display, its weapon systems clearly visible even in the static images. As you can see, these are not exploration vessels, Thelnox continued. The humans built these ships specifically for war. They have been observing us for 6 months, studying our laws and our actions, and they have judged us and found us wanting. Judged us, shouted a representative from the Carthy Unity. How dare they? We are the council. We have maintained peace for 10,000 years. They claim our peace is an illusion, Thelnox replied. They accuse us of ignoring atrocities and allowing suffering to continue. They specifically mentioned the slave markets in Sector 447, the invasion of the Kelmar homeworld, and the genocide of the Thryn people. The chamber erupted in angry shouts. Representatives stood waving appendages and tentacles, demanding to be heard. The accusations struck too close to home. Everyone in the chamber knew about those situations. They had all voted to take no action, to maintain neutrality, to avoid complications. High Chancellor Varix called for order again. This is outrageous. Who are these humans to question our decisions? We have carefully maintained the balance of power in this galaxy. We have prevented major conflicts. We have upheld the law. They claim we uphold the law only when it suits us, Thelnox said quietly, and they have evidence to support their claims. Captain Chen showed me detailed intelligence files. They know about situations we have kept hidden from the general galactic population. They know about council members who operate the very slave markets we publicly condemn. They know about the technology restrictions we claim are for safety but actually exist to keep new species dependent on us. This is propaganda, declared a representative from the Vothian Empire. Lies spread by a primitive species that does not understand galactic politics. With respect, Representative, the humans are not primitive, Thelnox said. Their technology in some areas exceeds our own. Their warships are far more advanced than anything in the Council fleet. And they are willing to use them. He paused, letting that information sink in before delivering the worst news. The humans have given us an ultimatum. In 72 hours, they will move into Sector 447 to shut down the slave markets. They have stated that any attempt to stop them will be considered an act of war. The chamber fell silent. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then High Chancellor Varix stood, his massive form towering over the podium. This is unacceptable. The Council cannot be threatened by a single species. We must respond with strength. We must show these humans that their weapons do not frighten us. Cheers erupted from many of the representatives. They nodded their agreement, their various forms of communication showing support for a strong response. Thelnox watched them and felt a growing sense of dread. They did not understand. They had not seen the human warships up close. They had not looked into Captain Chen's eyes and seen the absolute determination there. High Chancellor, Thelnox said, raising his voice to be heard, I must advise caution. The humans are not like other species we have dealt with. They are prepared for war. They want war. Everything about their arrival suggests they expected us to respond with force. Then they will learn the price of their arrogance, Varix declared. I propose we send a peacekeeping fleet to intercept them. 50 vessels fully armed with clear instructions to escort the human ships back to their home system. If they resist, they will be destroyed. We will make an example of them that will be remembered for the next 10,000 years. The proposal was met with overwhelming approval. Representatives across the chamber voted yes, their confidence restored by the High Chancellor's strong words. Only a few abstained, mostly species that had remained neutral throughout the debate. None voted against the measure. Thelnox wanted to object, but he knew it would be useless. The Council had made its decision. They would respond to the human threat with overwhelming force, just as they always had in the past when faced with challenges to their authority. The vote is unanimous, High Chancellor Varix announced. Admiral Kresh, you will command the peacekeeping fleet. Select your finest ships and crews. You will intercept the humans before they reach Sector 447 and compel them to return to their home system. Use whatever force is necessary. Admiral Kresh stood, a warrior from the Dranthi Collective, one of the few species in the Council that maintained a strong military tradition. He was old, scarred from dozens of conflicts, and he radiated confidence. It will be my honor, High Chancellor. We will teach these humans humility. As the chamber erupted in approving cheers, Thelnox quietly left the podium. He made his way to his private office, his mind troubled by what he had witnessed. The Council was making a terrible mistake. They were so convinced of their own superiority, so certain that no one would dare challenge them, that they could not see the danger ahead. He sat at his desk and pulled up the files on human history that his staff had compiled. What he read there did nothing to ease his concerns. Humans had spent their entire existence fighting. They had survived ice ages, plagues, and natural disasters that would have destroyed other species. They had fought wars with weapons ranging from sharpened stones to nuclear bombs. They had killed billions of their own kind in conflicts over resources, ideology, and territory. And then they had stopped fighting each other and turned their attention to the stars. All that aggression, all that skill at warfare, all that determination to survive now focused outward. The Council was about to face a species that had perfected the art of war over 200,000 years of constant conflict. A message appeared on his screen. It was from Captain Chen, transmitted directly to his personal communication device. Thelnox hesitated before opening it, not sure he wanted to read what the human had to say. The message was brief. Ambassador, I hope your leaders choose wisdom over pride, but I suspect they will not. Please know that what happens next is not your fault. You tried to warn us about each other. That counts for something. Captain Sarah Chen Thelnox stared at the message, feeling a chill run through his body. The human captain had predicted exactly how the Council would respond. She had known they would send a fleet. She had expected them to respond with force, and she had prepared for it. He composed a reply, his hands shaking slightly. Captain, please reconsider your course of action. The Council is sending 50 warships to intercept you. There will be no way to avoid conflict. Surely we can find a diplomatic solution that does not require bloodshed. The response came quickly. Ambassador, we have already considered every possibility. The slave markets in Sector 447 have been operating for 300 years. The Kelmar have been fighting for their survival for a decade. The Thryn genocide has been ongoing for 5 years. How much longer should they wait while the Council debates and does nothing? How many more beings must suffer while we search for diplomatic solutions that will never come? No, Ambassador. The time for talking has passed. Now is the time for action. Thelnox read the message several times, understanding the truth in the human's words. The Council had failed. For all their talk of peace and justice, they had allowed terrible things to happen. They had maintained their comfortable positions while others suffered. And now someone had arrived who was willing to do something about it. He thought about warning Captain Chen about Admiral Kresh, about telling her that the Council's fleet was commanded by one of the finest military minds in the galaxy. But he suspected she already knew. The humans had been watching for 6 months. They had studied the Council's military forces. They knew what they were facing. Instead, he sent a different message. Then I wish you good fortune, Captain, and I hope that when this is over, some good will come from it. The reply was simple. Thank you, Ambassador. I hope so too. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, Admiral Kresh was assembling his fleet. He chose his ships carefully, selecting vessels from the Council's most powerful military species. Dranthi battlecruisers with heavy armor and powerful weapons, Fothian destroyers known for their speed and maneuverability, Korthan carriers loaded with fighter craft. Each ship was crewed by experienced warriors, veterans of the few conflicts the Council had faced over the centuries. Kresh stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Vigilance, watching as his fleet assembled in space. 50 ships, the largest force the Council had deployed in over a century. It was more than enough to deal with a handful of primitive human vessels. The Admiral felt confident that this would be a simple operation. The humans would see the overwhelming force arrayed against them and surrender. If they were foolish enough to fight, they would be destroyed quickly. He opened a communication channel to his fleet. Attention all vessels. We face a species that has dared to threaten the Galactic Council. They believe their crude weapons can challenge 10,000 years of civilization. They are wrong. We will intercept them. Compel their surrender and escort them back to their home system. If they resist, we will destroy them utterly. Let this be a lesson to any who might consider challenging Council authority. Ready your ships. We depart in 1 hour. The fleet responded with acknowledgments from 50 different captains. All of them were ready. All of them were confident. None of them understood what was coming. Back on the Prometheus, Captain Chen received reports of the Council fleet's assembly. She studied the data her sensors had collected, analyzing the composition and capabilities of each vessel. Commander Morrison stood beside her, reviewing the same information. 50 ships, Morrison said quietly. That's more than we expected, is it? Sarah replied. They want to show overwhelming force. They want us to be intimidated. But look at the ships they have chosen, Commander. Battle cruisers designed for ship-to-ship combat at close range. Destroyers built for chasing down pirates. Carriers full of fighters that have never faced modern point defense systems. They are bringing the wrong tools for this fight. Because they do not understand what kind of fight this will be, Morrison said, understanding dawning in his eyes. Exactly, Sarah confirmed. They think this will be a traditional engagement. 2 fleets meeting in space, exchanging fire until one side surrenders or is destroyed. They expect us to follow their rules of engagement, their customs of warfare. They have no idea what humanity is capable of when we decide the rules no longer apply. She pulled up tactical displays, showing the projected intercept point between the 2 fleets. We have 72 hours before we reach Sector 447. The Council fleet will intercept us well before that, probably in about 60 hours. That gives us time to prepare. Orders, Captain? Morrison asked. Sarah smiled, but there was no humor in it. Contact Admiral Zhang on the carrier group. Tell her to prepare for full strike operations. Contact Captain Rodriguez on the stealth squadron. Tell him to begin infiltration protocols. And get me Lieutenant Commander Okafor. I need her cyber warfare team ready to go. As Morrison moved to carry out her orders, Sarah returned her attention to the view screen. Out there, the Council fleet was preparing to teach humanity a lesson. They believed they were the superior force, the experienced warriors who would easily defeat these newcomers. They were about to learn a very different lesson. They were about to discover that humanity had studied war not as an occasional necessity, but as a fundamental part of their existence. They had refined it, perfected it, and elevated it to an art form. And they were about to demonstrate to the galaxy exactly what that meant. The Council wanted to show strength. Humanity would show them devastation. The Council wanted to maintain order. Humanity would show them chaos. The Council wanted to preserve their comfortable system. Humanity would burn it down and build something better from the ashes. Captain Sarah Chen looked at the stars and prepared for war. Not because she wanted it, but because it was necessary. Because sometimes the only way to create real peace was to destroy the false peace that had come before. The countdown had begun. In 60 hours, the galaxy would change forever. The Council's peacekeeping fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. 50 warships arranged in a display of overwhelming force, their weapons powered and shields at maximum. Admiral Kresh stood on the bridge of the Eternal, Vigilance feeling satisfied with his fleet's precision. This would be a textbook operation. Show superior force, demand surrender, enforce Council will. Sensor contact, reported his tactical officer. Human fleet detected. Distance, 200,000 kilometers. They are holding position. Visual, Kresh ordered. The main screen showed the human fleet. 21 vessels in total, arranged in what appeared to be a defensive formation around their massive flagship. To Kresh's experienced eye, they looked nervous. They had stopped running. They were waiting. Perhaps they had finally realized the futility of challenging the Council. Open a channel, Kresh commanded. Let me speak to their commander. The communication system activated, and Captain Chen's face appeared on the screen. She looked calm, almost relaxed, sitting in her command chair. That confidence bothered Kresh more than he wanted to admit. She should be showing fear or at least concern. Instead, she looked like someone waiting for an expected appointment. I am Admiral Kresh of the Galactic Council Defense Forces, he announced. You are ordered to power down your weapons and prepare to be escorted back to your home system. This is your only warning. Comply or be destroyed. Captain Chen tilted her head slightly. Admiral, I appreciate the formality, but we both know how this is going to end. You are not going to escort us anywhere, and we are not turning back. Then you choose death, Kresh replied. My fleet outnumbers yours more than 2 to 1. Our vessels are crewed by experienced warriors. This is not a fight you can win. You are correct that this is not a fight we can win, Chen said, and for a moment Kresh felt relief. Then she continued, because it is not going to be a fight. It is going to be an execution. Your execution, Admiral. Kresh felt his confidence waver. The human's tone was not boastful or threatening. It was simply matter of fact, as if she were describing something that had already happened. You are bluffing. Surrender now, and your crews will be treated fairly. I am not bluffing, Admiral. And I am going to prove it. In approximately 10 seconds, your flagship is going to lose primary power. Your weapon systems will go offline. Your shields will collapse. You will be completely helpless, and there is nothing you can do to stop it. Kresh laughed. Impossible. Our systems are hardened against electronic warfare. No primitive species could penetrate our defenses. 8 seconds, Chen said calmly. She is trying to buy time, Kresh's tactical officer said. There is nothing on our sensors. No incoming weapons, no hostile signatures. 6 seconds, Chen continued. Kresh felt a moment of doubt. Something about the human's certainty was disturbing. But he had fought for a century. He trusted his instruments, his ships, and his crew. All vessels maintain formation. Prepare to engage on my command. 3 seconds, Chen said. Kresh opened his mouth to give the order to fire. Then every light on his bridge went dark. Emergency lighting activated a moment later, casting everything in a red glow. Alarms blared throughout the ship. His tactical officer stared at his console in disbelief. Admiral, we have lost main power. Backup systems failing. Weapons offline. Shields down. We are dead in space. How? Kresh demanded. What happened? Before anyone could answer, Chen's voice came through the communication system, which somehow still worked. I told you, Admiral. What you are experiencing is the result of 6 months of surveillance. We studied your technology, we found your weaknesses, and we developed countermeasures. Kresh looked at his tactical display, running on emergency power. To his horror, he saw that 4 other ships in his fleet were also showing dead in space. 5 ships disabled in seconds without a shot fired. This is impossible, he whispered. It is mathematics, Chen replied. Your quantum power cores operate on a specific frequency. We developed a pulse weapon that disrupts that frequency, causing a cascade failure in your power systems. The pulse is invisible to your sensors because it operates outside the ranges you normally monitor, and your shields cannot stop it because they were not designed to block that type of energy. Kresh felt his world crumbling. You are attacking ships that have not fired on you. This is a war crime. We are demonstrating capability, Chen corrected. No one has been killed. Your life support systems are still functioning. Your crews are safe. But you are now helpless. Consider this a lesson, Admiral. You brought ships designed to fight enemies from your past. We brought weapons designed to fight enemies from your future. All ships, return fire, Kresh ordered through the fleet communication system. Destroy the human vessels. His fleet responded, 45 ships moving to attack. Missile batteries launched thousands of warheads. Energy weapons charged to full power. Fighter craft launched from the carriers, swarming toward the human fleet like angry insects. It was everything the Council could bring to bear. A devastating assault that should have overwhelmed any defense. Then the human point defense systems activated. Admiral Zhang, commanding the human carrier group from the UESS Shanghai, watched as her battle management computers processed the incoming threats. Thousands of missiles and hundreds of fighters, all tracked and categorized in microseconds. Authorization confirmed. Point defense free, she ordered calmly. Every human warship bristled with defensive weapons. Rapid-fire railguns that could track and destroy dozens of targets per second. Laser arrays that could burn through armor in milliseconds. Automated systems that processed information faster than any living being could think. They had been designed to defend against the massed missile attacks that had characterized human warfare. Refined through decades of simulations and exercises, the Council's missiles never got close. The human point defense systems created an impenetrable wall of fire around the fleet. Explosions lit up space as thousands of warheads were destroyed before reaching their targets. The few that got through impacted against shields designed to absorb hits from weapons far more powerful than anything the Council possessed. The fighters fared no better. They were fast and maneuverable, piloted by skilled warriors who had trained for years. But they were also predictable, following attack patterns that had not changed in centuries. The human computers predicted their movements, calculated intercept solutions, and destroyed them with ruthless efficiency. In less than 2 minutes, 90% of the Council's fighters had been reduced to debris. Admiral Kresh watched in horror as his attack completely failed. Not a single human ship showed any damage. Not one shield had been penetrated. The humans had not even bothered to maneuver. They had simply stood their ground and demonstrated that nothing in the Council arsenal could harm them. "Admiral, what are your orders?" his tactical officer asked, his voice shaking. Kresh had no orders. He had no plan for this situation. A century of military service, he had never faced an enemy that could render his forces completely helpless without even trying. "All ships withdraw. Fall back to Council space." "Negative," Chen's voice came through the speakers. "No one is withdrawing, Admiral. We are not finished with our demonstration." On the Prometheus, Captain Chen turned to Commander Morrison. "Are the stealth ships in position?" "Yes, Captain. They have been shadowing the Council fleet since before it arrived. Waiting for your order." Sarah nodded. The stealth squadron, commanded by Captain Rodriguez, had used human technology that the Council did not even know existed. Ships with hulls that absorbed sensor waves instead of reflecting them. Engines that left no detectable signatures. They were invisible to the Council's instruments, ghosts in space. "Execute Phase 2, Sarah ordered. Throughout the Council fleet, ships suddenly began losing systems. Not all at once like before, but one by one. A battlecruiser's weapons went offline. A destroyer lost maneuvering control. A carrier's hangar doors sealed shut, trapping its remaining fighters inside. The stealth ships were using targeted electronic warfare, attacking systems with surgical precision. "This is a nightmare," Admiral Kresh whispered, watching his fleet fall apart without understanding how or why. "This is modern warfare," Chen corrected through the communication channel. "You built your forces to fight the enemies you knew. We built ours to fight enemies we could imagine. There is a difference, Admiral. A critical difference." She stood from her command chair. "But we are not here to destroy you. We are here to make a point. So I am going to give you a choice. You can continue trying to stop us, and we will continue dismantling your fleet, piece by piece, until nothing remains operational. Or you can withdraw now, return to the Council, and tell them what you witnessed here today." "Why?" Kresh asked, his voice hollow. "Why show mercy? You could destroy us all." "Because destruction was never our goal," Sarah replied. "We came here to change the galaxy, not to conquer it. We want the Council to understand that their way of doing things is over. The weak will no longer be ignored. The suffering will no longer be tolerated. Justice will no longer be delayed for the sake of political convenience." She paused, looking directly at the Admiral through the screen. "But we also understand that real change cannot come through total destruction. We need the Council to work with us, to use their influence and resources to make things better. So we are giving you the chance to be part of the solution instead of part of the problem." Admiral Kresh sat in silence for a long moment. His pride screamed at him to continue fighting, to find some way to strike back at these arrogant humans. But his experience told him the truth. He had been defeated more thoroughly than any warrior in Council history. The humans could have destroyed his entire fleet, but they chose not to. They had made their point with devastating clarity. "I will withdraw," he said quietly, "and I will deliver your message to the Council." "Thank you, Admiral," Sarah said. "One more thing. Your disabled ships will regain power in approximately 1 hour. Once the effects of our pulse weapon dissipate, we will not pursue you. But know this. What you experienced today was us being gentle. If we meet again as enemies, we will not show the same restraint." The communication channel closed. Admiral Kresh sat on his bridge, surrounded by defeated officers and failed systems, and understood that everything had changed. The Council's age of absolute authority was over. A new power had arrived in the galaxy, one that could back up its words with overwhelming force. He gave the order for his fleet to withdraw, watching as his ships limped away from the battlefield. Behind them, the human fleet remained in position, untouched and untroubled. They had made their demonstration. They had proven their point. And they had done it in just 14 minutes. The UESS Prometheus resumed its course toward Sector 447, its escort fleet falling in around it. Captain Chen returned to her command chair, reviewing the battle data. Everything had gone according to plan. They had defeated a superior force without killing anyone, demonstrating both their military capability and their restraint. Captain, we are receiving communication requests from across the galaxy, Lieutenant Park reported. News of the battle is spreading. Species are asking about our intentions. Some are expressing support. Others are condemning our actions. Ignore them for now, Sarah ordered. We have a mission to complete. The slave markets of Sector 447 are still operating. People are still suffering. We will deal with galactic opinion after we finish the job we came here to do. Yes, Captain. Commander Morrison approached her chair. That was impressive, Captain. We defeated them without firing a shot in anger. We defeated them because we understood something they did not, Sarah replied. War is not about having the biggest guns or the most ships. It is about understanding your enemy better than they understand themselves. It is about preparation, innovation, and the willingness to do what is necessary. She looked out at the stars ahead. But the hard part is just beginning, Commander. We have shown the galaxy that we can fight. Now we need to show them that we can also build. We need to prove that our way is better than what came before. Do you think the Council will accept that? Sarah smiled slightly. I think they do not have a choice anymore. We have just rewritten the rules of galactic power. Now comes the difficult part. Using that power to create something better than what we tore down. The Prometheus continued on its course, carrying with it the hopes of billions who had waited too long for justice. Behind it, the Council fleet retreated, carrying the message that the galaxy's old order had fallen. And ahead in Sector 447, the slave markets that had operated for 3 centuries were about to close forever. The demonstration was complete. Humanity had announced its arrival in the only language that the powerful truly understood, overwhelming and undeniable force. But Captain Sarah Chen knew that this was just the beginning. The real work, the hard work of building a better galaxy, still lay ahead, and unlike the battle they had just won, that work could not be accomplished with weapons alone. It would require something far more difficult, the courage to do what was right even when it was hard. The wisdom to use power justly, even when it was tempting to abuse it, and the determination to never forget why they had come to the stars in the first place. Not for conquest, not for glory, but because someone needed to stand up for those who could not stand up for themselves. That was the true human way, and the galaxy was about to learn what that meant. 3 months had passed since the confrontation with Admiral Kresh's fleet. 3 months that had fundamentally transformed the galaxy. Captain Sarah Chen stood in what was once the largest slave market in Sector 447, now converted into a refugee processing center. Where beings had once been bought and sold like property, they now received medical care, legal assistance, and transportation to new homes. The transformation had not been easy. The first week after the battle, human forces had swept through Sector 447 like a storm. They had shut down every slave market they could find, arrested the traders, and freed thousands of beings from captivity. But freedom was only the first step. These people needed food, shelter, medical attention, and hope for the future. That was the harder work, the work that could not be accomplished with weapons. Sarah walked through the processing center, observing the operations. Human aid workers moved among the refugees, assisted by volunteers from 17 different species. That number still amazed her. 17 species had formally requested Earth's protection and assistance, not because humanity had conquered them, but because they believed in what humanity was trying to do. Captain Chen, a voice called. She turned to see Administrator Liu approaching, carrying a datapad. Liu had been a diplomat before the mission. Now he managed refugee operations across Sector 447. The latest numbers are in. We have processed 8,347 individuals. Medical treatment is ongoing for another 2,000. Housing assignments are complete for 70%. Sarah nodded, reviewing the data. What about the criminal prosecutions? Complicated, Liu admitted. The Council is claiming jurisdiction over the slave traders since they are Council citizens. But many of the victims refuse to see their abusers tried in council courts. They do not trust the system that allowed this to happen in the first place. Set up independent tribunals, Sarah decided. We will try the traitors under international humanitarian law. The council can observe, but they do not get to control the process. These people deserve justice, real justice, not political theater. Liu made notes on his pad. That will upset the council even more. The council has been upset for 3 months, Sarah replied. They will learn to live with it. She continued her walk through the center, stopping to speak with some of the refugees. A Kelmar family, reunited after being separated at different markets. A group of Thrin survivors finally safe after years of genocide. A young being from a species Sarah did not recognize, holding tightly to a human aid worker's hand. These were the faces that made everything worthwhile. Every political complication, every angry message from the council, every sleepless night worrying about the future. All of it was worth it to see people who had lost hope finding it again. Her communicator chirped. Captain, this is Commander Morrison on the Prometheus. You have an incoming call from Ambassador Thelnox. He says it is urgent. Sarah found a quiet corner of the processing center. Put him through. Thelnox's face appeared on her communicator. He looked older than he had 3 months ago, worn down by the changes sweeping through the galaxy. Captain Chen, thank you for taking my call. Ambassador, how can I help you? I wanted to inform you that the Council has reached a decision regarding your actions. It was not unanimous and the debate was fierce, but a majority has voted to formally recognize Earth as an independent galactic power. Sarah raised an eyebrow. That is surprisingly reasonable of them. Do not mistake pragmatism for acceptance, Thelnox said wearily. The Council understands that they cannot stop you through force. Admiral Kresch's report made that clear. But many Council members are deeply unhappy with the precedent you have set. They fear that other species will follow your example. They should fear that, Sarah said. If the only thing keeping species loyal to the Council is fear of punishment, then the system deserves to fall apart. Thelnox sighed. Perhaps. But systems do not fall apart cleanly, Captain. When they collapse, there is chaos, suffering, war. Are you prepared for that responsibility? We are prepared to help build something better, Sarah replied. Something based on justice rather than power. On cooperation rather than control. Idealistic words, Thelnox said. But idealism is easy when you have the biggest weapons. The true test will come when you face difficult choices. When you must decide between your principles and your interests. Sarah met his gaze steadily. We have already made that choice, Ambassador. We came here knowing it would be difficult, knowing it would be expensive, knowing it might cost human lives. We came anyway because some things are more important than safety or profit. Thelnox was quiet for a moment. I believe you mean that. I hope you still believe it when the real challenges begin. Because there is something else I need to tell you. 7 more species have requested Council membership in the past week. All of them are explicitly stating that they want the protection of human military forces. Your alliance is growing, Captain Chen. You are building an empire whether you intend to or not. We are not building an empire, Sarah corrected firmly. We are building a coalition. Every species that joins us does so freely. They can leave whenever they want. We are not the Council, Ambassador. We do not demand 500 years of servitude in exchange for basic rights. Then what do you demand? Thelnox asked. Commitment to basic principles, Sarah said. No slavery, no genocide, no aggressive war, respect for sentient rights. Species can govern themselves however they want as long as they follow those rules. Is that really so unreasonable? No, Thelnox admitted. It is not. That is what makes this so difficult for the Council. You are not wrong, Captain. That is the problem. Everything you have said about our failures, about our compromises, about our tolerance of injustice, all of it is true. And now we must either change or be replaced. Sarah felt a moment of sympathy for the old ambassador. He was caught between 2 worlds. The old order he had served for so long and the new reality that humanity had forced upon the galaxy. Ambassador, I want you to know that we are not trying to destroy the Council. We want you to be part of the solution. The galaxy needs the experience and resources that the Council represents. But on your terms, Thelnox said. On terms that put justice first, Sarah corrected. Is that really so terrible? Before Thelnox could answer, an alarm sounded through the processing center. Sarah immediately shifted into combat mode. What is happening? Captain, this is Morrison. We have multiple contacts entering the sector. 15 ships, unknown configuration, moving fast. They are not responding to hails. Sarah ran toward the exit. Get everyone to shelters. Launch alert fighters. I am on my way back to the Prometheus. Captain, wait. Thelnox called through the communicator. Those ships are from the Dravok hierarchy. They are one of the species whose slave trading operations you shut down. They have been making threats for weeks, but we did not think they would actually attack. They are attacking a refugee center. Sarah felt cold fury building in her chest. Why? Revenge, Thelnox said simply. They want to make an example, to show that defying their interests has consequences. Sarah reached her shuttle, Commander Morrison's voice continuing in her ear. The Dravok fleet is powering weapons. Estimate 10 minutes until they are in firing range. Captain, we need to evacuate the center, but there are over 10,000 people here. We will never get them all out in time. Sarah jumped into the shuttle, her pilot already firing up the engines. Then we do not evacuate, we defend. Get the Prometheus between those ships and the center. Deploy all defensive platforms. And somebody get me Captain Rodriguez and his stealth squadron. The shuttle launched, accelerating hard toward orbit. Through the viewport, Sarah could see the Dravok ships approaching. They were older designs, not as advanced as human warships. But they had numbers and they clearly did not care about civilian casualties. All human vessels. This is Captain Chen. We have hostile forces approaching the refugee center. Our mission is to protect every single person in that facility. No one gets through. No one. Acknowledgements came from 20 human warships. They moved into defensive positions, creating a wall between the Dravok fleet and the planet. It was exactly the kind of fight Sarah had hoped to avoid. They had tried to change the galaxy without excessive bloodshed, but some people only understood force. Dravok vessels, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the UESS Prometheus. You are approaching a protected humanitarian zone. Turn back now or you will be destroyed. The response came in broken English, filled with rage. You destroyed our businesses, human. You cost us billions in lost profits. You took what was ours. Now we will take something from you. We will kill your refugees. We will burn your center. And we will show the galaxy that humanity is not invincible. Wrong answer, Sarah said quietly. She reached the Prometheus and ran to the bridge. Morrison had everything ready, the ship at full combat readiness. Captain Rodriguez, are you in position? Affirmative, Captain, came the response from the stealth squadron commander. We have been tracking the Dravok fleet since they entered the sector. 6 of our ships are positioned behind them. 3 more are along their flanks. They have no idea we are here. Sarah settled into her command chair. All ships weapons free. Rules of engagement, disable if possible, destroy if necessary. The safety of those refugees is our only priority. The Dravok fleet opened fire first, launching missiles toward the planet. They probably expected the humans to intercept them, to waste their defensive fire on the first salvo while the real attack came through. But they did not understand how human defensive systems worked. The missiles were destroyed almost casually, the human point defense systems barely taxed by the attack. Before the Dravok could launch a second salvo, the stealth squadron struck. Appearing from nowhere, human warships materialized among the enemy fleet like avenging ghosts. Railgun fire tore through hulls. Missiles crippled engines. In seconds, the Dravok formation was in chaos. Target their weapon systems, Sarah ordered. I want them disabled, not destroyed. There has been enough death today. Her crew executed perfectly. Precision strikes took out weapons batteries and propulsion systems. The Dravok ships were left drifting in space, helpless but intact. Not one had been destroyed. Not one crew member killed. But 15 warships had been reduced to scrap metal in less than 5 minutes. Sarah opened a channel to the Dravok commander. This is over. Power down your remaining systems and prepare to be boarded. You will be tried for attempted mass murder, and this time there will be no council to protect you. The Dravok commander's face appeared on screen, showing shock and fear. He had expected to terrorize defenseless refugees. Instead, he had run into a military force that had turned his attack into a demonstration of human superiority. You cannot do this. We are a council member species. We have rights. You had rights, Sarah corrected. You lost them when you decided to attack civilians. Your species can remain in the council if they want, but you and everyone involved in this attack will face justice. She closed the channel and turned to Morrison. Secure the prisoners. Send aid to any Dravok crew members who need medical attention, and increase patrols around the refugee center. If there are other species planning similar attacks, they need to understand what will happen to them. Yes, Captain. Sarah slumped back in her chair, feeling exhaustion wash over her. 3 months of constant vigilance, of political maneuvering, of trying to change a galaxy that did not want to change. And still there were those who would rather see people suffer than accept that the old ways were over. Her communicator chimed again. Ambassador Thelnox, Captain, I witnessed what just happened. That was remarkable restraint. You could have destroyed those ships. We are not here to destroy, Ambassador. We are here to protect. There is a difference. I am beginning to understand that, Thelnox said slowly, and I think others in the Council are as well. What you just did, protecting civilians at great risk to yourselves, refusing to kill even when attacked, that sends a powerful message, perhaps more powerful than your military victories. That was always the point, Sarah said. Anyone can break things, Ambassador. The real strength is in building and protecting. That is what humanity wants to bring to the galaxy. After the conversation ended, Sarah remained on the bridge, looking at the tactical display. The refugee center was safe. The Dravok were in custody. Another crisis managed, another threat neutralized. But Thelnox's words echoed in her mind. 7 more species wanting to join the human alliance. An empire growing whether they wanted it or not. Commander Morrison approached her chair. Captain, we are receiving requests for assistance from 4 different sectors. Apparently, word of what we did here has spread. Other species being oppressed by council members are asking for help. Sarah closed her eyes briefly. This was what she had feared. Success breeding more responsibility, each victory creating new obligations. They had set out to stop slavery in one sector and ended up reshaping galactic politics. We cannot help everyone, Morrison said quietly, reading her expression. We do not have the ships or the people. No, Sarah agreed. But we can do more than nothing. And we can inspire others to help themselves. She made a decision. Send a message to all the species in our alliance. Tell them we need to form a proper organization. Not an empire. Not a government. A coalition dedicated to mutual defense and humanitarian principles. Each species contributes according to their ability. Each species benefits according to their need. What will we call it? Morrison asked. Sarah thought for a moment. The Free Species Coalition. Because that is what we are. Species that have chosen freedom over oppression, justice over convenience, and we will stand together to defend those principles. Morrison smiled. The Council is really going to hate that. Let them, Sarah replied. They had 10,000 years to build something better. They chose comfort over justice. Now it is our turn. Over the next few weeks, the Free Species Coalition took shape. Representatives from 24 species gathered on a neutral station that humanity had constructed specifically for this purpose. It was not grand like the council chambers. There were no ancient pillars or elaborate decorations, just functional meeting rooms where beings could work together to solve real problems. Sarah watched the first official session from the observation deck. Below, representatives debated the coalition's charter. Some wanted strict rules and regulations. Others argued for maximum freedom. Humans tried to guide the discussion, but mostly they listened. This could not be another human empire with different branding. It needed to be genuinely collaborative. Ambassador Thelnox stood beside her, having accepted an invitation to observe. The council had not formally endorsed his presence, but they had not stopped him either. That ambiguity was becoming typical of council responses to humanity. They could not defeat the humans, but they were not ready to join them either. They argue like children, Thelnox observed, watching the debate below. They argue like free beings, Sarah corrected. No one is telling them what to think. No one is threatening them with isolation if they disagree. This is what real cooperation looks like. It is messy and slow, but it is honest. And when they cannot agree? Thelnox asked. When their interests conflict. What happens when your coalition faces a crisis that cannot be solved by noble intentions? Then we will figure it out together, Sarah said. We will make mistakes. We will have failures. But we will face them honestly and we will learn from them. That is more than the council ever did. Thelnox was quiet for a long moment. You know, when you first arrived, I thought you were naive. Dangerous idealists who did not understand the complexities of galactic politics. But now I wonder if we were the naive ones. We thought the galaxy would always work the way it had. We thought our system was permanent. You showed us how fragile it really was. Your system was not fragile, Sarah said. It was hollow, built on power rather than principle. When someone challenged it, there was nothing inside to hold it together. And you think your system will be different? Sarah considered the question carefully. I think our system will be transparent. When we fail, everyone will see it. When we succeed, everyone will benefit. That is all we can promise. Not perfection, but honesty. Not absolute security, but genuine justice. A commotion below drew their attention. A representative from the Kelmar was standing, speaking passionately. The translation system carried his words to the observation deck. For 10 years we begged the council for help. For 10 years they debated and delayed while our people died. In 3 months, humanity has done more for us than the council did in a decade. That is why I support this coalition. Not because humans are perfect, but because they act. Because they care more about results than procedure. Applause erupted from many of the representatives. Not all, some species were still cautious, still unsure, but enough to show that something real was forming here. Something that could last. Captain Chen, a voice said behind them. Sarah turned to see Admiral Zhang approaching. We have a situation. The council has announced a major policy reform. They are abolishing the 500-year probationary period for new species. They are also creating an independent body to investigate humanitarian violations. Sarah felt a surge of satisfaction. They are adapting. Because you forced them to, Thelnock said. They know that if they do not reform, they will become irrelevant. Species will leave the council and join your coalition instead. Then everyone wins, Sarah said. The council improves. Our coalition grows. And beings across the galaxy benefit from the competition between our systems. Is that what you wanted all along? Thelnox asked. Not to destroy the council, but to force us to be better. We wanted justice, Ambassador. However we could achieve it. If the council wants to be part of that, we welcome it. If not, we will do it without them. More weeks passed. The Free Species Coalition officially formed, adopting a charter that emphasized mutual defense, humanitarian principles, and voluntary cooperation. No species was required to join. No species was punished for leaving. It was everything the council was not. And slowly, carefully, some council species began to take notice. Not to join the coalition, not yet, but to establish diplomatic relations, to observe, to learn. The galaxy was watching humanity's experiment, wondering if it would succeed or fail. Sarah knew that the real work was just beginning. They had fought a battle and won. They had rescued thousands and brought criminals to justice. They had forced the council to reform and established a new organization. But maintaining that progress would be harder than achieving it. There would be more crises, more species needing help, more difficult decisions about when to intervene and when to hold back. The coalition would face internal disputes. They would make mistakes. They would sometimes fail. But for the first time in 10,000 years, the galaxy had a real alternative to council rule. For the first time, the weak had protectors who genuinely cared about their welfare. For the first time, justice was not just a word used to justify inaction, but a principle backed by real power. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of the coalition station, looking out at the ships from 24 different species working together. Human warships stood alongside vessels from species that had been council members just months ago. Former enemies cooperating because they believed in something larger than themselves. Commander Morrison joined her, holding 2 cups of coffee. He handed her one. Quite a view. Yes, Sarah agreed. 3 months ago we were hoping to make a small difference. Now look at what we have started. Do you think it will last? Morrison asked. Sarah sipped her coffee, considering the question. I think it will evolve. It will change. New challenges will force us to adapt. But the core idea that the strong should protect the weak, that justice matters more than convenience, that cooperation beats domination, I think those ideas will endure. Because we have the military power to enforce them? No, Sarah said. Because they are right. And in the long run, being right matters more than being strong. We have given the galaxy proof that a different way is possible. What they do with that proof is up to them. Far across the galaxy in the council chambers, High Chancellor Varix addressed the assembled representatives. The chamber was less full than it had been 3 months ago. Several species had withdrawn their membership. Others had reduced their participation. The age of absolute council authority was clearly over. The humans have won, Varix said quietly, not through conquest but through example. They have shown the galaxy that our system is not the only option. Now we must decide who we want to be. Do we cling to the old ways and watch our authority continue to erode? Or do we embrace real reform and rebuild the council into something worthy of the name? The debate that followed was fierce. Some representatives wanted to fight back, to reassert council dominance through economic pressure or political maneuvering. Others argued for accommodation, for finding ways to work with the human coalition. Still others advocated for fundamental restructuring, admitting that the council had failed and needed to be rebuilt from the ground up. In the end, no consensus was reached. The council remained divided, uncertain of its future. But that uncertainty was itself a kind of progress. For the first time in millennia, the council was questioning itself. And in that questioning lay the possibility of genuine change. Aboard the Prometheus, Sarah received a final message from Ambassador Thelnox before he returned to council space. Captain Chen, I wanted to thank you, not for what you have done to the council, but for what you have shown us. We became so comfortable in our power that we forgot why we existed. We maintained order but forgot about justice. You reminded us of what we should have been. Whether the council can reform itself remains to be seen, but at least now we are trying. That is your doing. Sarah composed her reply carefully. Ambassador, humanity did not come to the stars to lecture others. We came because we believed we could make a difference. The galaxy is large enough for both the council and the coalition, large enough for many different approaches to governance and justice. What matters is that we all keep trying to do better. Good luck with your reforms, Ambassador. We will be watching and hoping for your success. She sent the message and returned to her duties. There was always more work to do. More refugees to process, more systems to patrol, more species requesting assistance or information. The Free Species Coalition was growing faster than anyone had anticipated, and with that growth came new responsibilities. But Sarah did not regret their choices. They had come to the stars with weapons, yes, but also with principles. They had used their power not for conquest but for protection. And in doing so, they had changed the galaxy forever. The humans had arrived, not as conquerors or supplicants, but as partners. They offered strength to the weak and challenged the strong. They refused to accept that injustice was inevitable, or that suffering was acceptable. They demanded better, not just for themselves, but for everyone. And slowly, gradually, the galaxy was learning to demand better as well. Captain Sarah Chen looked at the stars and smiled. They had expected a shuttle, a handful of naive explorers hoping for scraps of advanced technology. Instead, Earth had sent warriors with principles, diplomats with weapons, and idealists who understood that sometimes the only way to build peace was to first destroy the systems that prevented it. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly what humanity had intended. The journey was far from over. There would be setbacks and challenges, victories and defeats. But for the first time in 10,000 years, the galaxy was moving in the right direction, not because anyone forced it to, but because someone finally showed that a better way was possible, and that someone was humanity. They came not in peace, but for peace. They came not with empty hands, but with full hearts. They came not to join the galaxy as it was, but to help build the galaxy as it should be. That was the human way. That was the lesson Earth brought to the stars. And the galaxy slowly but surely was learning to listen,